Tallboys and Trackmasters is brought to you by Expert Exhaust. Expect more for your money. And by Cycle Mart, your motorcycle parts store. What is going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in, and hope you had a good Thanksgiving break. And now it's time for Tallboys
and Trackmasters.
Well, how was your Thanksgiving break, buddy? Get any deer?
I took my rifle for a hike in various types of awful weather. It was not a good season for my hunting lease. Nobody really did any good. So
everybody was hunting a buzz instead.
Yep. Well, we didn't kill many deer, but we killed a lot of beers. My dad knows a guy over in Bemis that if you give him 40, I think it's 40 cans, he'll make a clock. My dad's got like a Bush-like grandfather clock with like the little thing that ticks back and forth, the pendulum. So that's pretty sweet. But we got enough to make some clocks. And I will tell you what, it was torture. I had a bunch of bike parts that got delivered sitting at home, and I really wanted to get back and do some wrenching, but I couldn't. So
yeah.
How about you?
Just spent some time with some family.
Good.
Nice to be away from work a little bit. Picked up a few parts myself, and excited to kick off the, we keep referring to it as the seasonal depression time. But really
it's seasonal.
Yeah, it's all year long with most of us. But yeah, we're in that time of the year where unfortunately it's a little too cold to ride for most people, and it's a good time to take your bike completely down for a little bit of winter maintenance, which is what tonight's episode is going to be about. And there's a lot of little things that I think get overlooked when it comes to maintenance, and this is a perfect time to catch up on that type of thing. And also maybe we can show some people and talk to you about some different things that maybe you didn't think about checking and maintaining. That's the most important thing of the episode to me tonight. The first thing that I would say to start out with is make sure you got something easy and clean to work on. Take your time, get the thing washed down really well. That way you're not dealing with mud and dirt and stuff falling and getting mixed up with whatever you're taking it apart. And once you kind of have that bike cleaned very well, where it's easy to see the different things that may be, jumping out to you that are wrong, get it up on a stand, get the tires up off the ground where you can really start your assessment. And I know you have a few points you want to start with as well here. So I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah. So step one, wash your bike. Period. Especially if you're planning on doing anything that involves opening up the motor. I know on KTMs, due to the way that the frame and the wiring harness are routed, it's right above your valve cover. That wiring harness holds on to mud like nothing else. I sprayed mine and still had to wrap it in saran wrap to make sure that nothing was going to drop into that open valve train while I was doing a valve check. Yeah. So that's one of my big winter maintenance things is nobody likes to check their valves because on a lot of bikes, it's a huge pain. It's a necessity, I think. And this is a perfect time to do it. You're you're not on a weeknight trying to throw this thing together as quick as you possibly can so you can go ride on Saturday or something like that. You've got several months of time that you can just pace your jobs out, take it easy, and get it done right the first time around instead of rushing through.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I know, speaking of KTMs too, is a good time to inspect your countershaft seal, since those like to go out if your sprocket bolt loosens off, and just it's always the stuff nobody wants to do. Nobody wants to replace wheel bearings.
Yeah.
But as much water and mud and stuff as we go through, it's a necessity. I'm going to be replacing my fronts, since I got lucky that I could hammer a new set into that roached out rear hub, and I'll put a new set in the fronts too. And if you got the money, if you can replace wear items as a set, if the wheel bearing on the left side of your front wheel went out, well, there's a very good chance that it's going to go on your right side too. Same goes for fork seals. Mr. Arthur Punsack, this is a great time of the year to replace your fork seals that went out in very early September.
Yeah.
So, and another thing goes hand in hand that's a really overlooked item that if you've bought used bikes, you're very well aware at how overlooked it is swing arm and linkage bearings.
Yeah.
Luckily on my KTM, your KTM is PDS. So some people say they're non-serviceable, period, due to a Teflon coating on the spherical bearing, but they still have traditional swing arm bearings. So it took me not very much time to get in there and get it cleaned out and inspected and greased back up with a good waterproof grease.
Yep. Bearings in general are probably the number one thing when it comes to, a kind of downtime winter maintenance in my eyes. You get that bike up on a stand where everything's, up off the ground. Both wheels are off the ground, where you got plenty of room to maneuver. Just start grabbing everything and see what's loose. Pick up on your rear wheel and check for shock bearings, swing arm, linkage bearings, side to side with your swing arm, your wheel, on the front especially. Grab your forks, check for some back and forth play in your steering stem bearings.
Absolutely.
I mean, pretty much every type of bearing on the chassis is going to need serviced.
Yep.
And I'm of the mindset that basically if you're going to tear it into that far to check that stuff, it's cheap insurance to just go ahead and replace it.
I'm a huge fan of if you're already in there, just go ahead and do it. That's like I had to replace a drive rotted O-ring on that Trail 90 I'd picked up, and that turned into several hours of scraping off old like asbestos tar gaskets off that thing. But I was like, I can't put this back together.
Yeah.
I'm already in here that far. Same goes for people that try to save a couple bucks on a KTM hub or something like that by reusing the old lip seal. Well, you get dirt, grit, etc. in there. It destroys that sealing surface. Yes, your bearings are shielded. No, they are not impervious to dust, water, mud intrusion, etc.
Yeah.
So any amount of extra protection that you can give that bearing is well worth it.
Yeah. And something else I would say too, especially with wheel bearings and mostly any kind of sealed bearing that you're going to find on your motorcycle, take the time to take a little pick and peel that seal off of one side, because there is hardly any grease in any of these new bearings. If you pack that thing where it's supposed to be and put the seal back on, you're going to get a lot more life and a lot more longevity out of those bearings.
I got a little piggyback tip to that. Whichever, a lot of bearings you can put them in either way. Whatever side you pick the little seal off of and put it back on, put that towards the inside of your hub.
Yeah.
So you've got the fresh factory, never been touched, seal facing out.
Yep, with the lip seal on the outside as well. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, and to go along with this, as you're kind of checking the bike out, get a little notebook or a little clipboard with a piece of paper and start writing down what you find as you go along. That way you don't forget something. It's come springtime, you're throwing the bike back together and you're headed down the road and you're like, oh man, I forgot to change those swing arm bearings out. And I know that they were bad. So yeah, it's important to me. Yeah. Keep a checklist, and you can start ordering parts as you go, as you figure out what you need. Hopefully get everything coming at one
And
time.
you can get an idea once you get that list in front of you. You can go down through there and kind of rank it by severity of what needs replaced first and foremost, and what can be waited on a little bit. I'm a huge fan of keeping Excel sheets and stuff like that, tracking maintenance, or make a note of feels like these bearings starting to get loose, or the sprocket's starting to get wore out, and we'll have to order one soon. So on the subject of wheels, since we already talked about hubs and stuff, is checking your spokes. I think a lot of people don't do that. And
that's a good point.
Ideally, you would have a spoke torque wrench to do that with, but you can also get a decent idea of if you've got a dead spoke or a loose spoke by just going around with a little 8mm wrench and tapping each spoke. And spokes of the same length and the same orientation should make almost the same sound.
Yep.
So that's served me well in the past. But
anytime you got a dead, like you say, you take a little wrench, you just tap on it, it should make a nice ding sound. Anything that goes don't, the spoke needs tightened up right there. So that's a great point, man. Something that's definitely overlooked. And even on that subject with the wheel itself, take the time to really inspect your wheel and make sure there's no cracks in it, because I know my XR 650R, that wasn't something I was really looking for. And I remember I took the front tire off, I think it was the change with new tube, new tire, and my rim strap was a little goofy. So I was like, I'll go ahead and do the typical, duct tape rim strap setup. And whenever I took the rim strap off, I actually looked around. I think it was the hole for the rim lock, and the rim was cracked. Had a nice 2-inch crack all the way around it. So
any hole's a stress riser, and wheels are full of them.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree. Something I do when I change tires, if I'm not in a huge hurry, is take the old rim strip off, clean the wheel, and then just go around and inspect it. I'm looking for cracks, the start of corrosion on spoke nipples, and I'm also looking for warps. And you take a really the kind of hit I'm going to talk about. It's one that almost makes you grit your teeth. It's did my front end even soak any of that up? And always check to see if there's any big deformations or whatever in the rim when I have it apart too. So I think definitely spoke maintenance gets overlooked.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, if you have the bike up off the ground where you can spin the wheel, just kind of look too and see how wobbly and tacoed the thing is. And if it's at that point, there's plenty of options out there, Tusk with their impact wheel set, or even KKE that you see on Amazon and stuff. The wheel sets aren't that cheap.
The same wheels.
Yeah. We've definitely found that out with our buddy Tyler. Tyler Vincent on his wheel set he bought.
Old Tyler. Something that I've had pretty good luck out of is kind of a redneck fix or a redneck technique or whatever. If I don't have or can't borrow a balance stand or something like that to actually put the stylus up and check for rim straightness or run out, I'll just take a zip tie, put it around the fork leg, cut it into a point, and then just sit there and spin it. And anything that seems excessive, I'll check the other side too. And if I notice that both of them shift over at the same rate, I'll try to pull that out with the spokes. If one side stays just where it's at and the other warps out, then I know that I've taken a hit that spread that side of the wheel, the rim out a little bit. But I've done it on the front, I've done it on the rear. Just zip tie around your swing arm or fork leg, and you can get a decent idea of how far out of whack your wheels are.
For sure, man.
You'd be pretty surprised at how far out of whack they can get before you start to notice it.
Yeah. It's a lot like when you have tires on your bike that are wore out, but you get to the point of kind of getting used to how it feels.
Yeah.
You hop on another guy's bike where the wheels are perfect. You're like, oh, there's something really wrong with my bike. So it's easy to overlook. Kind of speaking with continuing with the drive side of things there. I know one thing that I think gets overlooked as well is check your chain rollers and your chain guide. those things can be wore almost completely out, and you really won't know it until you really give it a nice visual inspection and look. I don't know how many times I've seen bikes where, the little chain roller up there by the front sprocket, kind of on the frame, bearings have been gone for years in the thing, and it's just sitting there vibrating and wiggling. Just something super easy and quick to check. And, with all the new aftermarket stuff out there, like TM Design Works, slide and glide kits.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of cool options out there to not only put something on your bike that works better, but also looks a lot better too. But yeah, that's something really easy to check.
Another kind of overarching tip or whatever is the quicker you get your bike up, the quicker you get it washed, and the quicker you start your inspection, the quicker you can get stuff to ask for Christmas. If you got a significant other or family or something like that that's asking you, what do you want? You can say, well, here's a link to a chain on, like an X-Ring chain on Rocky Mountain ATV-MC. That'd be great. Stuff like that, goes a long way.
Yeah, it's like, what are you looking for Christmas this year, babe? Well, I'm not really sure. Well, I was thinking about getting you maybe some new shoes or some new hoodies and stuff. I think I need a TM Design Works slide and glide kit for KTM 500.
Yep.
Here's the link. So
yep.
Yeah, it's definitely easy to ask for stuff this time of year. One big one that I know off air I've kind of been talking to you about and harping on, because I don't want to see anybody go through what I had to go through to fix this problem. And this happened out on the trail, and it's something that this time of year it'd be definitely a good thing to take apart and check. And we're talking about chains, and that's your chain adjuster bolts.
Yep.
Take those things completely out of your swing arm.
Yep.
Put some anti-seize on them and run them in and out a few times, because on my 650R, I had one snap off in the swing arm, and I had to take the swing arm completely off the bike. It was a pain in the butt to chuck up into a vise the right way to get straight down on it with a drill and drill the bolt out, retap the threads. I had to put a heliocoil in the swing arm. Like, it's a disaster.
Yep.
And it's something that gets overlooked, and people just kind of roll with it when they put new tires and new chains and stuff on their bike and just assume that it's okay.
Yeah.
But loosen up your lock nut, take that bolt completely out, and make sure it gets liberal amounts of anti-seize on it.
Yep. Clean the threads on the bolt. If you're a gun guy, I've in the past taken a like one of the copper bristle brushes for a gun barrel and ran it through the threads in the swing arm.
Yeah.
Like you said, anti-seize it up. And anytime you buy any bike, new, used, doesn't matter if you're the first owner or the sixth, that would be one of the first things that I did. I experienced that. We were, AJ and I were out riding up in Mon County, and his chain finally loosened point. And I said, man, we should probably do something about that. And it was like 90 degrees that day. So there we were trying to fight these chain adjusters out of the swing arm that had almost seized.
Yeah.
Even if the threads are clean and the bolt's not rusty or anything, a zinc plated bolt will react with aluminum and create its own form of corrosion that will lock it solid over time.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's a huge tip, especially for an aluminum swing arm.
Yeah, and even if you have a bolt, I've seen this too, and I've had them on my bikes before, where you really start to adjust the chain a lot, and the bike's got a lot of hours, a lot of miles on there. Those bolts, the bolt heads get chewed up super easy. The lock nuts get chewed up. I literally saw 2 days ago, I think it was on RockyMountain.com. They have replacement bolts. It was a 2-pack for like $8.
Yeah.
And it was model specific. They had a bunch of different lengths and different sizes depending on what you're riding. But cheap insurance, just get some new bolts and throw in there.
Yeah, Rocky's fantastic for consumables like that.
Oh yeah.
To buy OEM, Lord knows what it would cost for each side for some makes and models. So
yeah. This is a perfect time too, where maybe you have an issue with your bike where it's something that's livable that you just kind of deal with, but this is a perfect time to actually fix it. Maybe just for example, say your headlight shroud is a little loose, and when you really start hammering down on a rough trail, your headlights bouncing all over the place. Well, it's probably something as simple as the little post on the headlight are wore out, or maybe the little rubber grommets that it slides down into are wore out. And it's something really quick and easy to fix. And there's a lot of things like that I remember. I don't remember until I get on the bike and I start down like, man, I really should have fixed that before I took off.
It's
a perfect time to catch up on that stuff.
It's amazing how small quality of life improvements like that you've just been dealing with and dealing with and dealing with. Yeah. You fix it, and then you come to realize how distracting it was when you were riding.
Yeah.
This is a perfect time too to chase your electrical gremlins.
Yeah, absolutely.
There will never be an easier time than when that bike is more or less tore down in your garage, instead of on the trail, side of the trail somewhere. That includes electrical connectors. If you've got a bike that's known for having electrical connectors that are prone to water ingress and corrosion, of course, KTM's gotten significantly better. I've noticed that a lot of the connectors on mine are gasketed. When I popped them open, they've been, pretty spotless inside, which impressed me. But, it's simple stuff, especially on fuel injected bikes, that can create really odd issues.
Yep. I've got an issue on mine right now that I'm going to start hunting. My horn's kind of intermittent. It works sometimes. It doesn't work sometimes. I'm going to take the gas tank off and just kind of check the entire wiring harness. And that's a good area to check if you are having some electrical gremlins, because let's face it, there's not a lot of room on these bikes. The wiring harness has got to go somewhere, especially when you start adding oversized tanks. It takes up more room. So, it's probably something as simple as there's a bare wire grounding out on the frame somewhere. Just kind of look over your entire harness and see if there's issues. Maybe you got a connector plug that the little keeper pin is broke off on and it's loosening up, and just little things like that. And I would also kind of go out on a limb and say it's a great time, if you have connectors like that are easy to get to just go ahead and put some dielectric grease in there to further mitigate any issues you're going to have down the road.
Agreed.
It's a great time to tidy up some wiring. Maybe you have some aftermarket, running lights or fans or switches or what have you. It's a great time that maybe you like you were saying earlier, it was Saturday night, we're going to go ride Sunday, and you want to put this fan on, so you just
been there.
Ran the wiring however you could run it. It's a great time to tidy up that kind of stuff and make it look a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree. On the subject of wires is wire fatigue. You remember on your XR, I think it was a CDI box or something, the grounding wire for it from the vibration had finally fatigued enough that it actually broke free from the connector at the end of it. So that's something to be aware of. If you got loose wires flopping around and stuff like that, eventually they will fatigue the copper conductors to the point that they'll start to separate and fail in there.
Yeah, one thing I would definitely say to everybody out there that's got, a 350, 500 KTM EXE model, make sure you check that ground that's underneath the seat going on the back of the subframe, because like you said, that's a very, very high fatigue area, basically, where we were out on, I think it was a Memorial Day ride earlier this year, and Sean Booth's ground wire had come apart right there. I've seen Fred's come apart. Mine was starting to come apart, and I fixed it. So,
and that's something that's really easy to inspect on a KTM, especially. I wish I could have back the hours of my life that I've spent chasing electrical issues that were solely the result of a bad ground.
Yeah, that's a great place to start.
A lot. I mean, a lot. I guess we're on the electrical system. If your battery was starting to get iffy towards the end of this riding season, there's not going to be some Christmas miracle where it's cold cranking amps are mystically restored on the 25th of December.
God bless us, everyone.
Yeah. You chuck that thing off to the island of misfit toys and see what you can do in the battery department. I was fortunate, the KTM came with a lithium, which in my mind, if you got the money, is the way to go for the longevity, and it's truly a maintenance-free battery.
Yeah.
And they're extremely lightweight.
For a battery. it's insane how light these new lithium batteries are. I have
You
one.
wonder if there's anything in it.
Yeah, it just feels like a plastic box with nothing inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bike's got one of those. I think it's a zero
Yep.
anti-gravity lithium battery.
It used to
It's
be
got a
that
little.
they were companies like Shore Eye,
Yeah.
stuff like that, were the only ones manufacturing them. Rocky started making their own house brand batteries. Well, importing their own house brand batteries, you get it. Pretty affordable, good reviews. I've always had good luck with stuff from Tusk, so
Yeah.
that's something to look into. I know that the battery for the Trail 90 is 6 volt. I don't have a 6 volt trickle charger.
Not many people do.
Luckily, a brand new battery for that thing's $20. So
Oh, you can beat that.
Yeah, we'll be okay. That's something else too. I typically take the batteries out of my bikes and bring them inside. If you got a heated garage, great for you. I hope to get to that point in my life at some stage. But I'll normally just take the batteries out of my bikes and bring them inside and periodically check the voltage over the winter. You know, it typically doesn't drop very much.
Yeah.
And if it does, throw it on a trickle charger. But keeping them out of the cold saves some serious wear on them.
Absolutely. Another thing that I would highly recommend during this time is to simply replace all the fluids in your bike.
Yep.
Brake fluid. If you have a hydraulic clutch, your hydraulic clutch fluid.
Yep.
And probably the biggest thing, if you got a liquid cooled bike that, you know, say you were a little bit cheap earlier in the summertime and you were just putting straight water in, make sure you get that out of there and put some antifreeze in, because I've seen guys that have done that. They've just ran straight water and they park their bike down in the building. And what happens when they come springtime to go start the bike up?
Yep.
You've got a cracked head or cracked cases.
Yeah. If you're lucky, it just swells your one of your aluminum radiators and busts it.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of the times it's somewhere where it's not going to be pretty, like you said, a head or a water jacket or something like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, drain that coolant out and just put fresh stuff in.
Yeah, I think a jug of Maxima coolant is like $8 or something like that. It's pretty affordable.
Yeah, our bikes don't take a whole lot of coolant. You know, it's not like you have to buy 7 gallons to fill it up.
Yep. So
brake fluid. I think brake fluid is something that gets overlooked. It gets cooked easily, that people don't realize. It gels up if it gets a little bit of water in it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's something that it's easily changeable. You know,
a tip or something to watch out for, I guess, for brake systems is there are several different dot ratings of fluids, some of which absolutely cannot be mixed with one another. I know that there's like a silicone-based brake fluid that if you mix traditional like mineral-based brake fluid with it, it like congeals in the lines, and it's a huge problem.
Yep. It's a great time to check your brake hoses too. See if they're starting to get swollen and or leaking a little bit, maybe here or there. Great time to
check your brake pads.
Yep.
Check your rotors. All you gotta do is spin your wheel around, and if it goes around fine and hits a certain point and the wheel kind of catches and acts like it slows down a little bit, you very likely have a warped rotor.
Yep. And also, you know, look at that, because I've seen a lot of times where, you know, rotors that get wore in really, really bad, they're kind of concave. Great time to check that, you know, see if if they've been cooked, if they've been ran too hot with, you know, metal pads for too long. They're not really that much money. It's something that's easy to swap out and upgrade, especially if you got your wheels and stuff off at that time.
That being said, I would not cheap out on brake pads. I would not get on eBay and buy like the uber cheap Chinese brake pads from a brand you can't even pronounce. Probably the cheapest I'd go would be something like Tusk. I've had good luck out of just putting OEM brakes. If I get 4,000 miles out of a set of brakes, it's fantastic. That's what I'm going to throw back on there.
I've had pretty good luck out of the Tusk brake pads. They seem to work pretty decent and last.
Yeah.
Like get a riding season out of them, basically.
Yep.
See a comment real quick from Dad. It says grease your caliper slide pins. That's another good point too. Something that's overlooked and easy to do while you got that stuff apart.
Yep.
And also somebody else put check or replace the reservoir diaphragms. They like to swell. That's another good tip as well.
And check to make sure your rotor bolts are tight while you're down there.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, while you got your bike apart, just go over and
yeah,
you don't have to be a complete nerd about it right off the bat and go in with a torque wrench, but at least you have a general feel for what an 8mm bolt should be. And if it feels like it's only finger tight, then that's an issue. I would start checking, especially your subframe bolts and stuff like that. If you've got a bike that, vibrates a lot, which most dual sports, because those like to vibrate loose, and then it starts egging out the holes and everything for your subframe, and it gets to be a mess.
Yeah. It, if you got a 10, a 12, and an 8mm T handle, just start going to town over the whole bike.
Yep.
Any bolt that you can see that's easy to get to, that you really don't mess with a whole lot, just give it a little torque and see if it's loose. Because a lot of times I found myself that, oh man, this number plate side panel bolt is not real tight, so let's tighten that up. And that's another thing too. If you've got bolts or fasteners that you've been fighting taking apart to do some maintenance throughout the year, it's a great time to buy one of those spec bolt kits and just start replacing as you go along.
Yep.
I got one right now in my seat. It's a single seat bolt that goes up through the bottom of the rear fender, and the bushing that's in that the subframe and the rear fender is a little loose. It's one of those deals that when you get the bolt tight, it's still, the seat's a little bit loose. I looked up on Rocky Mountain, and that replacement bushing thing was like $9. So I'm just going to go ahead and buy that, put that in. Won't have to worry about a loose seat anymore.
Yep, I agree.
You made a good point about rotor bolts there a second ago, because when I was on that GPX 450 and was racing down in off of Kelly Mountain, I got to the starting line, and that race was awful. I think you and Shiloh came.
Oh, yeah. We couldn't figure out why on earth your front, it looked like you were holding the front brake trying to take off. I was like, James, what are you doing?
Yeah, I went like literally 2 feet off the starting line. The front wheel was locked up, and I'm like, what in the hell is going on with this thing? And I kept just trying to back up and hit it again. And the bike was sliding down the hill. And finally, the bolt head broke off where it finally had enough clearance to go through. And no idea what was going on. I thought, it's mud in the front brake pads or something. But no issues the rest of the day. But when I got back home, I was like, oh, that bolt had backed out. That's what the problem was.
Yep. On the topic of fluids, get you an oil change in.
Yeah.
And I'm a big proponent of, if you're going to change the oil, don't do it cold. Go for a ride, get it hot, rag on a little bit. You want as much particulate suspended in that oil as you can get. Clutch particles, little case shavings, whatever you got, wear from your gears and your transmission. You want all that stuff suspended in that oil, so when you drain it, you're not draining cold oil that has this layer of like sludge and particulate sitting on the bottom of your sump. You want all that stuff out of there.
Yep.
So I've become a big fan of that. And actually, if you look in a lot of user manuals, it's what it tells you to do.
Yeah, most of them do. Yeah.
So
let's touch on the fuel delivery side of things a little bit. If you've got a fuel injected bike, this might be a great time to go ahead and just change your fuel filter out.
Yep.
It's like KTM's with that little 10 micron filter. It's easy to
so the one that's in the connector, you can get a 5-pack of them for like $12. I change them, I don't know, probably every 1,000 miles or so.
Yeah.
Cheap insurance. It does not take much to clog them. And we fill up at a lot of remote gas stations where it might be 60% gas, 30% water, and 10% sediment.
Yeah.
So
really, really cheap insurance to do that. And then on the other side of it, if you've got a carbureted rig, I would highly recommend turning the fuel petcock off and running the thing completely out of gas.
Yep.
You don't have gas.
Yeah, either let it idle until it dies.
Yeah.
Or if you're one of the guys, the rarities that have the little drain bolt in your carb that's not completely stripped out, You
Yeah.
know, I'd go ahead and run that dry.
Yep.
Um, I picked up this Honda, and of course, all the O-rings and stuff in the carb are 50 years old, right? And a carb seal kit for that thing's like $22.
Yeah.
And it's something that's easy to do. I think it's a great idea, especially with all the ethanol and stuff in the fuel that hardens O-rings over time. If you've
Yeah.
got some weird intermittent fueling issues, it feels like it's kind of stumbling at certain throttle openings and RPMs. It's a great time to just take your carb off and clean it and put some new O-rings and seals on it.
Yep. I would also say, along with that, it's a great time to, take your air filter out and give the inside of your air boot going into your fuel injection or your carburetor a good wipe down, because dirt and dust are going to get past your filter no matter what. And you try to mitigate that as much as you can, but it's a great time to wipe that stuff out. Just don't leave the rag in there and forget about it when you're done.
We can't talk about that. Another thing too is a lot of guys will do their preventive maintenance, whatever. Go ahead and oil up a fresh air filter and throw it on the bike or in the bike, and then it sits until April, May. Some filter oils don't stay tacky for that long.
Yep.
Especially, that's why I stopped using no toil. No toil was the absolute best stuff I'd ever seen in my entire life for cleaning and serviceability. The absolute easiest stuff to clean out of an air filter. But I noticed that if I wasn't regularly riding, it would lose its tackiness after, just a month or so. So I know that there is some petroleum based filters or air filter oils out there that do something similar. So you don't want to hop on your bike, and ride it for 4 months out of the season or whatever. Depends on how rough you are on air filter maintenance, but
Yeah.
it's just cheap insurance to wait and just chuck a fresh one on there like before your first ride. It's, for me at least, it's peace of mind knowing that the oil's good and tacky and hasn't sat there and solidified.
Yep. Another thing I would probably touch on is your handlebars and your controls.
Yep.
Take it from a guy who's had a handlebar mounting bolt snap off in the top triple clamp while you're riding.
Clearly, that was not on the GPX.
Nah, it couldn't have been.
No.
Could happen to a lot of bikes though, so it's something easy to look at. A lot of times you might not even realize that if you've got rubber mounted handlebars,
That's what I was just about to say.
Yeah,
it's
so
a slow
to check.
Yep, it's a slow decline. That rubber wears out a little bit over time incrementally, and you don't notice how sloppy your front end was or unresponsive your front end was until you put new rubbers on it, and it feels like it's like a knife now. I mean, it just feels like it's really tight and responsive. Yeah. So, or guys run those like Mako 360s and stuff like that. Those elastomer bushings have a lifespan too, I'm sure.
Yep. Yeah, this is it's a good time to do some upgrades as well. Maybe you're on the fence and thinking about running like a heated seat or maybe heated grips. It's a great time to buy that kind of stuff and modify your bike a little bit and improve it. I know we've talked about that on previous episodes.
Yeah, it's just a good time to tinker. Like if you've got an idea, like you want to try to make a rally tower for your bike, perfect time of the year to do it.
I've been working on that. Yeah, it's fun. Was one other thing I just thought of, and it's kind of went out my brain. Don't remember what it was now. Anything else you can think of off the top of your head?
Yeah. I guess it's in two parts. Inspect your suspension.
Yeah.
That goes beyond just your linkage bearings. Inspect your rear shock for leakage. I wish rear shocks were as easy to take apart and service as front forks.
Yeah.
But they're just not. But you can kind of tell when a rear shock's starting to get ragged out. It feels like your compression, your rebound and stuff's not quite right. And you'll play with your clickers and it's still not quite right. And you'll play with your clickers more and it's still not right. It's because A, lost nitrogen pressure, and B, your fork oil over time will draw water because it's hygroscopic. Same with fork oil. I gotta take the forks off my KTM and service those, and it's a good time to take them apart and inspect your bushings inside your forks for wear. Go ahead and throw a set of fork seals on there if you're, I just
make sure you buy SKF if you have a KTM.
Yes. Buy SKF dual compounds if you have a KTM. But I'm just anything that I can do now while I've got the time that can save me headache during riding season. I'm a big fan of it. Yep. So nothing sucks worse than having to, miss out on something because you got your bike down for maintenance that you had time to do previously.
Yep. And this is also a good time to, as you go along and you start doing this type of work and kind of servicing your bike and doing more in-depth stuff at this time of the year, this is a great time to, figure out what tools you need to make your life easier when it comes to doing that type of stuff. I mean, most forks these days, you have to have a special type of cap wrench and sockets to take the thing apart. So it's a great time to start tearing that stuff apart, realizing what you need to make it come apart and work on it a little bit easier, and just go ahead and order that stuff. I know like my 4CS open chamber KTM forks takes a special pin socket. I got that, got a seal driver, got the little bullet to protect the new seals going over your bushings and stuff.
Those things are a lot more user-friendly than putting saran wrap over the end of your fork tube.
Yeah, and really it's not that much. It's not really that expensive. I think I bought the socket, the seal driver, the bullet, and then I also bought the little air gap tool with the syringe to set your air gap in your front forks.
Yeah, I bought one of those from Motion Pro. The fork motor. It's more accurate than doing it based on volume because you, short of completely tearing your forks down and spraying out everything with solvent, you'll never get all the old oil out of there. So depending on how your manual is set up, whatever you're putting back in there is not going to be necessarily accurate, but 120 millimeters is 120 millimeters, even though it's cold outside. So
shrinkage. There was no shrinkage.
Yeah, the shrinkage. But throw some fork seals on there, throw some dust boots or your little dust seals, stuff like that on there. Inspect your fork legs. If you've got a fork that keeps blowing a seal, chances are you got a big nick in the chrome on your fork leg. A lot of the times it's not the end of the world. You take some really fine grit sandpaper and go over it. I've also seen guys, if they get like a pit, like a nick so deep that it's kind of a pit, they'll take JB Weld or something like that and put in there and then kind of shave it down and get more service life out of it. The biggest thing is just it's got to be smooth.
Anything you can catch your fingernail on is going to get your seal and make it leak. So
you can catch your fingernail on, I think, 1/1000 of an inch, little rise or something like that. So it really doesn't take much. Trying to think of what else related to front forks. If you have front forks that are supposed to be vented, I know KTM's come stock with those dinky little Torx head fasteners down in there. I think a set of Motion Pro like push down fork bleeders are like $12. Perfect stocking stuffer. Tell your wife or girlfriend or whatever, she's cool with you riding. Stocking stuffer, keeping your forks from building air pressure if they're not supposed to. Well, obviously air forks are a little different, right? But I've seen some pretty serious amounts of pressure get built in those things, especially you start riding over a lot of like choppy creek rock. Your forks are working a lot and producing heat, and it doesn't take long for air pressure to build up in them.
I just remembered the one thing I forgot. This is a great time to repack your silencer on your exhaust.
You leave me alone with my gunshot and a tin can sound.
My KTM is obnoxiously loud.
It is
FMF T4 silencer.
It is.
It needs repacked, and I will be doing it this time of year. You know, sometimes it's a little more involved. It depends on what kind of exhaust you have. The super nice one just have Allen bolts that kind of bolt it all together, and you can take those out. Most of them have rivets that you're going to have to drill and take apart to repack.
I prefer rivets personally. You can't strip a rivet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good time to do that. It's cheap. A roll of FMF packing is less than $30 for you know, your 4-stroke, even 2-stroke stuff. It's dirt cheap to do that as well.
Wear gloves.
Yeah, it's fiberglass and it will get embedded in your skin easily.
Wear gloves, but yeah, that's something that I need to give some consideration to at some point. But you know, there's more pressing stuff to be done. I guess we kind of touched on valve check, stuff like that. Any engine work, if you're due for a top end soon, why not do it now instead of trying to do it 20 hours into your 2024 riding season? So
I'll be doing that myself this winter. New top end gaskets.
Everything sounds good in mine. I want to go to 200 hours. I've seen a lot of guys on the forums going out past that with no issues. So
that's where I'm at. I've got a little timing chain noise. I don't think this motor's ever been opened up, and I'm just going to go ahead and do it and get it over with. I know Fred did that on his back, and got pretty good luck out of it. So
I bought a UKTM guys. The timing chain tensioners, they're hydraulic, and over time they don't hold hydraulic pressure that good. So I ended up buying a Dirt Tricks timing chain tensioner. It's got a mechanical ratchet in there that won't let the timing chain guide go back, which is a lot of the timing chain noise, at least on the 350 motors, is that guide just kind of flopping back and forth in there because there's not enough oil pressure to hold it, you know, forward the whole time. So it's something that incrementally comes on, and then you get next to like a brand new bike and notice that it doesn't really make that sound. So
it don't sound like that.
Yeah. But at the same time, especially for KTMs and Huskies, don't drive yourself crazy over engine noise because these are just weird, noisy little motors.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I think one of the last things that I would say is, man, this is a great time to just get with your buddies and do this stuff and start knocking it out.
Yep.
You know, bring your bike over to your friend's shop, friend's garage, crack open a couple of Tallboys and start knocking this stuff out together. It's a great time.
Hey, buddy, you let me know when I can come over.
Anytime, bud. I got some bikes to sell, make some room, but we can make it work over here.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up that side of stuff. So yeah, lots of great tips, and should have plenty of stuff for everybody to start down their list and work on now this time of year.
Yeah. I got one more to throw in for winterization is fill up your gas tank, preferably with higher octane fuel because fuel octane does lessen over time in storage, and put a fuel stabilizer in it.
Oh yeah.
Even better if you can get non-ethanol fuel, but that's getting harder to find. So, but that is the best stuff to put in for storage.
Yeah. So we're not really going to have a dedicated industry news segment this episode. There's one bike we're going to talk about after we get done on this little thing I'm going to touch on because, you know, obviously us racing motorcycles and being part of this industry and this sport, you take a liking to other aspects of the motorcycle industry, and one that we really like is racing. Obviously, we've had some guys on that have done a lot of racing. I've raced myself. Lots of guys in the club have. And there was a story that came out about a particular rider that went and raced the Baja 1000 that has to be talked about. I want to touch on it here on the show as part of the industry news segment. So, for those of you who don't know, there was a young man, and I'm going to absolutely butcher his name. His name is Wouter John van Dijk. I butchered that. I know I did. Everybody's calling him the Flying Dutchman. So here's this kid's story. He was a Dutch citizen living in Australia. Likes to race hardcore style events. He raced Red Bull Romaniacs recently and finished in the I think it was the bronze class, which is kind of the lower tier guys. Yeah. Had a wild idea. He decided to fly to San Diego here in the United States He picked up a 2013 KTM 500 EXC, which is pretty much the same generation as my bike. Rode it 1,000 miles from San Diego to the start of the Baja 1000 in La Paz. Was able to scrounge up enough stuff in the pits there. When he got there, the tires were completely bald, wore out. Half of the bike was falling apart. It didn't have an oversized tank. It didn't have handguards. This guy scrounged through the pits and found all that stuff and was able to pass tech inspection and decided to sign up for the Ironman class, which is one of the most crazy, out of this world classes you can try to race at the Baja 1000.
48 hours
solo and 1,000 miles. So the guy takes off, and for 90% of the race, he's running second in the Ironman class. Now, he has no pit crew.
Yeah, completely
no truck. He is literally just riding on a prayer and a whim.
And the biggest thing for desert races, this guy, zero pre-run.
Zero.
None whatsoever.
No experience riding in
completely raw.
No navigation experience in Baja.
Yep.
And he was literally just showing up to people's pit stops, begging, borrowing, and stealing some gasoline and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and some tacos once in a while. Yep. And towards the end of the race, he got lost, and the trophy trucks had started to catch all the motorcycle guys and got around him, so the dust was crazy. But, you know, in the end, he finished 9th in the Ironman class, and that is absolutely insane. And I raise my beer to you, to the Flying Dutchman, sir. That was
absolutely that excites me more than the KTM factory team finishing out Dakar. You know, it's one thing to have professionals riding the bikes, professionals servicing the bikes, et cetera, but, you know, that's the true, in my eyes at least, that's the true spirit of racing, is the, you know, we'll do it anyway attitude. You know, that to me is just absolutely amazing. And to have done as well as he did is a testament to his abilities.
He beat multiple factory teams out there around the Ironman class. And in my eyes, he's the modern day Burt Monroe. If you don't know who the Burt Monroe is, he was the guy from New Zealand behind the World's Fastest Indian, which is a great movie, and everybody needs to watch that. Showed up to the Bonneville Salt Flats basically and did the same thing, begged, borrowed, and stealed, and was able to pass tech and set a world record. Yeah, man, that's what it's all about. Just having the fortitude to not say no, not give up, not quit when people tell you you're crazy, and just keep going, keep striving, keep pushing. And, you know, guy's a legend now in Baja.
Yeah. And an industry where progressively it's become more of a throw money at it mentality. It's just amazing to see a guy with no support go out and do it. Same reason I like watching Torture Test Magazine do 24 hours of Glenn Howland on a DR200. Yeah. But, you know, desert racing is just a completely different breed. I was out in Las Vegas earlier this year in like March, and was fortunate enough to be able to see some of the bikes and buggies and stuff that were going to be in the Mint 400. And that race kicked off while I was out there, and, you know, it's completely different to get over here. Yeah. So that guy's an inspiration, to say the least.
Yeah, I hope it shows people that you don't have to have the big sponsorships, the multi-million-dollar rigs to go and not only, you know, complete the thing, but be successful and have a great time doing it as well.
Yeah, so I agree.
The other little snippet we'll talk about, this bike has to have the award for the longest reveal process I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. The longest tease, the longest hype, and we've still yet to get any real tangible information beyond what it looks like.
We got a price on it.
Oh, what's the price?
Still don't know anything about it, but there's a price on it, and that's the new Triumph 250 motocross bike. It's coming in at $10,000 US. Where's
it manufactured?
That's a good question, because honestly, it looks like a hodgepodge of a lot of different bikes.
Yes.
The engine looks like a KTM. The frame looks like a 07, 08 Yamaha aluminum four-stroke frame.
Yes.
So who knows? But yeah, man, they continue like, check out the grip on the right-hand side of this bike. Here's a teaser shot.
Wow. What got me is in the video that I watched today, because they did drop the big reveal, or the 10th big reveal or whatever. They claimed that it had class leading power and class leading weight. They made those claims without posting or putting in the video the actual figures. So how much more powerful and how much lighter, because a lot of manufacturers will spec dry weight and they get really sneaky about dry weight. It goes beyond, no fluids. They'll go as far as to not have tubes in the tires and stuff like that to try to cheat dry weight.
Yeah.
If I like any amount of competition, because that's what spurs innovation, first of all. I'd love to see the Euro bikes be forced to continue to innovate. I don't want them to get to a point where they rest on their laurels like the Japanese manufacturers did. I want to see that continued innovation. But at the same time, if it's so much better to show a video of that thing smoking a KTM 250 SX, and you won't be able to make enough of those things to meet demand.
Yeah.
So I was extremely excited several years ago when this was first announced. But the longer it goes on, the more tease videos and stuff like that get done. I want to see some riders on, some content creators that I trust the opinion of, get a hold of one of these things and start some reviews and stuff.
Yep, absolutely. We'll see what happens. I'd say by 2038, maybe it'll actually be in some dealerships around here.
Maybe. I'm curious to see where it's manufactured, really.
Yeah, I would be too. Well, with that being said, I think it's time for my personal favorite part of the episode, and that's had to lay her down.
Did you run into some clippings? Did Barb take the kids? Well, Hoss, maybe you had to lay her down.
Exciting news for everybody out there that's a fan of this show, and just guys that are in the FTSR club as well. My wonderful wife Heather will soon be making some Clibbin stickers that you can put on whatever you want. Your helmet, that they will consist of Clibbins, God bless, Hoss, and had to lay her down.
I have a question.
Okay.
Could I get a Clibbin sticker that's approximately 1.5 feet tall by 5 feet wide?
I don't know if we can go that big, but
you've seen Talladega Nights. This sticker is dangerous and inconvenient, but I do love Clibbins. Right across the windshield, buddy.
Real quick, I was scrolling on Facebook earlier today, right? And I think it was Adventure Rider on Facebook. It's a group I wasn't even part of, but somebody commented on there. And they literally said, it's fall riding season, so please, nobody just blow your leaves and lawn clippings in the road, right? Nothing to do with, had to lay her down or anything. And I saw that there was like 20 laughing emojis and 1 million comments. I'm like, I already know what's going to happen here. So I click on the comments, and it's nothing but God bless Hoss and everything else there. So of course I had to add in on the fun there.
Yep.
Great time. All right. So tonight's had to lay her down. Speaking of the Flying Dutchman in Baja, is a little bit of Baja Clibbins, or as we'll see in this clip, yard sale Clibbins, what I like to call it. So we'll cue this up and let everybody take a look. So this is one of the famous like first or second turns coming out of the start gate here, and we have a little bit of issue. So we'll let the clip play.
Goodness.
Gotta love coming around a blind corner with some motorcycle clippings in the middle of the turn.
Yeah, that's beyond had to lay her down. That's Jesus take the Renthals.
I like that. All right. Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. Before we go, we'll go through some of the comments that we got this evening here. Got a few on the docket tonight. First one up says, I shed a single tear on the drive home Sunday afternoon. Fun riding season isn't over for me. Strictly freezing cold commutes until at least March. At least I'm not caging it. Seasonal depression time, boys and girls. There was the comment saying to check the reservoir diagrams, which we said that's a good tip. Dad with the grease your slide caliper pins.
Or else.
Buddy Steve Sellers said, is EBC still good stuff? That was always my go-to for pads. Yeah.
Yep,
EBC, good, clutch kits. They're good on that. They're good on the brake pads. Definitely still good stuff.
Yep.
And Brad said EBC is still premium. Wintertime is a good time to serve shock and forks. Absolutely. That's what we talked about. Steve says he can service shocks. Yeah, Steve's big in the mountain bike world, and I know he has all the stuff to do motorcycle and shocks and forks as well.
Oh, sweet.
Last one, way back in '87, my dad and I went out west to visit some relatives. While we were there, we got a chance to spectate a desert race. It was cool seeing the 500s out crossing what looked like a dry lake bed. Yeah, man, I would love to go down and ride and just kind of spectate at the Baja 1000. Be a great time.
Being able to go see the bike class in the Mint, stuff like that, was fantastic. I want to go back and spectate, more of it at some point.
Yeah, the Mint 400 is awesome. The Vegas to Barstow.
I want to do Barstow to Vegas at some point in my life.
There's lots of cool stuff out west and desert racings here in the United States to check out for sure. All right, with that being said, I think that wraps up tonight's episode. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and we'll see what happens for next week and what we got lined up on the docket, and we'll let you guys know. You'll be the first to find out. So appreciate everybody tuning in tonight, and as always, keep her vertical.
Watch for clippings.
Watch for clippings.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Have a good night, y'all.